Hello, everybody. This is Peter Palmiotti of Human Art Studios, and this is Making Comics and Art. And of course, if you've been watching, I'm trying to pass 1,000 subscribers. So if you're new here, and give me a break and subscribe to my channel. And also, there's a bunch of links below the video, including Jim's, our guest, which I'll get to in a minute. But I want to share out this. I have a 1K subscriber club happening in my Create Own Comics group on Facebook. If you go to my announcement post and drop the link to your channel and give a brief description, I'm looking for comic makers, comic podcasts, that sort of thing. And these are 3 fine people trying to grow their channels. The links are down below, and you can go support their channels as well as mine. One other thing is my art rep, Philip Russert, has his tragedy comic on Indiegogo right now, and you can go support it. And this is one of the pieces I did when he did his Kickstarter. He decided on Indiegogo he was going to turn them into covers. So this is one that was penciled by his wife and I inked, and M. Zapata, however you pronounce his last name. Zapata. Yeah. He colored it as well as he added all that background detail, the snake and the little frame. So that's a wraparound cover. The other piece is just a single front cover, but I believe both are virgin covers. So no tragedy logo or anything like that. But let's see. I got one other thing I wanted to mention. I picked this up recently. Well, I actually got it from Amazon. This book I've flipped through before. A friend of mine had a copy, and I love Klaus Janssen, his inks as well as his pencils. To my knowledge, and we can Google everything, but I don't have time. To my knowledge, I believe there's a CD, DVD, something like that, that's included in this. If anybody knows of that and has a copy and wants to send me one, by all means, because I got the $20 version. There was like a $130 version. It's crazy, but yeah, I love his work, and I wanted to pick that up because those that have been following along, this is my character retro, working on issue 1, inking it. I'm going to start posting very soon glimpses of pages, and that will mean each page is done. I got 14 totally done, and I'm working on the second half of the book. It's 28 pages total. Rich Future is a penciler, my inks, but I'll be penciling issue 2 on, so I got to practice my penciling, and that's what that jazzio is about. But yeah, tonight we have Jim Lujan, the one and only animated.
Peter, here's my imitation of everybody that's not familiar with comics and art. Oh, Peter, you do cartoons? Oh, that's so cool. Can you do one of me? Like maybe make a comic book of me, like something funny? That would be cool. Just real quick.
Oh yeah. Like I got a couple months I can work on your comic.
For free?
For free.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So we got a bunch of people in the chat. Joshua Kimball, and we got Jerry Hodges. And,
they are not following the restraining orders from the court. Okay, so I wanted to say, but I don't mind. It's cool.
But it's great to see them in my chat. I'm not sure if I think Gary has been in my chat. I'm not sure if Joshua has been in my chat before. I'm sure he has at some point. I forget if he has. Then I'm sorry.
That's a
But,
right there.
well,
That cool pastor gig is a reference to he's playing a character in my new film, a cool pastor he's playing. So he's really great. Yeah.
How do people become voice actors in your films? Do they have to beg you?
Yes, always. No, I don't know. It's usually if I have a character, I'll be like, oh, I want to, like, I would put you in a film. Absolutely. If you ever want to be in one, let me know.
I absolutely do.
Really?
If you got a mafia guy, or I could do a pretty decent Brooklyn accent, you know.
So here's one of the requirements. You just have to have a way to record yourself clearly. But you know what? This works. If you have a good phone recorder and you just email me your line, that's usually what I do with my voice actors a lot of times. Draw me like one of your friends. Right, like Peter, I have to. You know what's funny? I know that you and I have done this before in another lifetime. I know that we've.
Yes.
Was it Independent Road, your other show?
Yes. I mean, you've been on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You know,
a long time ago.
I used to do like Studio Synergy. I'm sure maybe you joined one of those where I have a gang of people. I've had solo shows, and I'm pretty sure you've done a solo show here. But yeah, going back a little ways, I did Independent Road for 4 years, just an audio podcast with Talk Shoe. That I only found out this year that they took them all down, all the episodes. I was like, oh man,
sucks.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Peter, I need to tell you, Independent Road, even before I was ever on it, that is such a good name. Like that fact that you got that before anybody else is amazing. Like, you should hang on to that somehow. That's a really great name for a show.
I started briefly a alternative to that. Like, since it was video, I felt like changing the name slightly. I forget what I call it now, but it's, if you look down my videos, you can find episodes. I think I did 6, one with Marshall, one with.
Was it the Independent Highway?
Independent Crossroads, something like that, something related but different.
Or was it the Dependent Road? That was it.
Dependent.
That was a great show.
Codependent Road.
The Codependent Highway. Yeah, that was an Independent Road. Keep that in mind, man, because that's a great title. That's such a good name. Catchy.
Thanks. So I just watched Infinity Pool, your latest movie that you have up on your YouTubes. And as always, it's great. It's great.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. And you have other people involved in that. I saw Tom Rensine, which is a name I recognize.
Yeah, he's great.
But you have help with music and some other voices in there. Talk about the process of putting that together.
Oh my gosh, that was one of my favorite films that I ever worked on. Okay, so it's the lead in that film is a guy named Charlie Rossman, who's an actor. If you Google Charlie Rossman actor, he's like the real deal. He's been in all kinds of films. He's been in Superbad. He's been in a bunch of other stuff, but he's a really good friend of mine. Really, really funny, versatile guy. And Tom Racine, as you mentioned, Tom is like, I need to have him in every single thing I do because he's great. So the quick version of it is, it's a story about a pool man named Jerry the Pool Man, and he works in like Beverly Hills or Bel Air, that area, and he cleans the pool of this one recluse singer named Beverly Summerwine, and she's been out of the spotlight for years, kind of a mystery. She's kind of a Barbara Streisand type, and they develop a relationship, and through developing this relationship, he finds out her secret world and all kinds of stuff that's going on. And I always tease people by telling them, if you're an Art Bell fan, you'll like this film because it has something to do with lizard people. So it's funny. It's very funny. And the music, one of my favorite music projects I've ever done. I did a lot of the music with my cousin, Mike Perez, and Mike and I have been doing music since the 80s. Like he's a great guitar player, and we always love writing together and stuff. So this was an opportunity for us to like, hey, we've been doing this behind the scenes. Nobody's been hearing our stuff. And so I put some stuff that we created in the film, and it came out really, really creepy and fun. And he also plays the singing voice to Beverly Summerwine, which should tell you a little bit of what the film mood is, because it's very weird and strange. And yeah, when I did it, I thought it might be too dark. Well, I didn't care, but I thought maybe it's a little bit too dark. And it's just, I don't know, it's one of my favorite films. Oh, and I have an endorsement on this film that I will cherish for my days. Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, says that this is an amazing film. He gave me the thumbs up on it. So yeah.
I saw that.
I love it. Yeah, that right there, made it worth it. So if he likes it, then you'll like it too. But yeah, that's about. There's one film that came out I did after that, a long film, like Infinity Pool's like half an hour, and then I did a series that I put together in a film format. I smushed it all together, and it's like an hour long. And there's a thing. Go check it out when you get a chance. You have an hour to kill, or just put it on in the background. Called The Mind of Lars Lazarus. I think you'll like that. That's another really weird, funny one. So, but oh yeah, I do animated films, people. In case you wondered, not really the comics, but animated films, which are cousins, right? Maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
Oh yeah,
and talk about Corey Kerr. Corey Kerr just jumped in. Let's talk about Corey. My 3 favorite things about Corey: dance moves, number 1.
His
obviously.
hair. No, wait, he shaved
his hair. Number 2, and his lack of hair when he shaves it is number 3. Those are my 3 favorite things: dance, hair, and no hair. Next question. And Gary Hodges says, Mind of Lars Lazarus and Infinity Pool are both, and he goes, chef's kiss, like that. Or unless it's like a slow tongue kiss from a chef. I'm not sure. Depends on where you eat, right? Which restaurant? If you go to the Creepy Chef restaurant. Yeah. But thank you, Gary.
So funny.
This is the best episode of Independent Road that there's ever been right now.
That's right. Except for the last time you've been on, because that was the best.
It's a tie. Although I can't find it anywhere. On my YouTube, this is a shameless plug. On my YouTube channel, which is my name, Jim Loughran, there's a thing I have on there called I put all the anytime I do an appearance on YouTube or whatever, like an interview, I'll put it in this playlist I created called Jim Interviews. So stupid. And I was looking for our interview that we did, and I couldn't find it. I want to put it on that playlist. So if there's a historian out there,
that has a copy,
perhaps from Yale or perhaps Columbia, maybe you guys can set a team to go find it and archive it for me. That would be great.
That's right. Yeah. I'd like to listen to it myself.
You drawing with a brush?
I'm inking. Yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean this is sort of my new format where I work while I talk to a guest.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I do solo shows, whatever. But this way, I'm committed to. This is my first real creator-owned project, and this is a character.
Looks very retro.
It's very retro. It's a character I created in my late teens, and developed throughout the years. And it's like I did a couple of things, webcomics wise, a couple of attempts to work on a project and get it out there, and it's not that those failed, but they really didn't get far. And in 2008, 2009, I was like, okay, I gotta do something of my own. Like, I worked from home, DC, I had books published through Image, worked for Valiant back in the day, and a million independent companies. It's time to do my own book. So I had one artist, and he did a couple of pages that didn't work out. And then I actually ran into Rich, who we did some work together on a book called Razor back in the 90s. It was a bad girl book. And I was like, I really like your work, and I really want to put together my own book. Would you be interested in working on retro? And he was like, absolutely. He jumped at the chance. So, but that it took me this long to really get around to working on it. It's like,
I have a weird question for you. Can you hold up the bottom left panel, that plant, that picture of the plant? Can I see it closer? Because I'm going to feel that, and I want to draw a plant like that.
I can zoom in.
There you go. Yeah, I want to see what you did. I mean, I know it's such a weird request, but I draw, for some reason, end up drawing lots of plants. That looks great. Wow.
Yeah, it's just sort of like thick brush
It's
strokes.
so what's the word? Smart. It's so economic. That's the word.
Yeah.
It's very economic. It covers a lot of ground with a few lines, and it looks really beautiful. So
Nice.
I'm going to steal it. In fact, I just screenshot it. I'm going to use it in mine. Thanks, Paul. Very, very nice. Good job, Peter.
Well, I blame the artist, but
Peter, is your by the way, is your middle name start with a P?
My middle name? No. I got two middle names.
What really? What do you got?
My full name is Peter Louis Michael Palmiotti the First.
Nice. I'm James Michael. Nice to meet you.
Michael is my Christian name. So that's the name I chose for myself.
Michael is my stripper name. Magic Michael, not Magic Mike. Magic Michael. So.
But yeah, I mean, because I'm Christian, there's the ritual. We get to choose our own middle name, and I chose Michael. Like, I had two best friends at the time, Richard and Michael, so I chose Michael. I
grew up Catholic, but I'm not a very good Catholic. Which is like they say most Catholics are.
Yeah, I'm Catholic in spirit, but not necessarily religious. My mom was very religious.
Me too. Same here. My mom was one of the ladies in her later years was one of the ladies that would go sit in the church in the morning. Like, there's a official thing where they make, like, I guess they gave her a machine gun or something, and she looks but yeah, she would like really do that. She would wake up, and then my mom was so Catholic that when the church converted to, I don't know if it was, I think it might have been Vietnamese. They had the early morning service was in like Vietnamese all of a sudden, she stayed for that. She would sit there, and she knew when to stand up and when to do the Holy Cross. It's really cool. There's a lot of really cool things about the Catholic Church. I know there's lots of jokes people make, but there really is like a lot of really interesting things about it.
Yeah, it's like I like the ritual of it, and the fact that like if you go to church, you're getting good things in. Like good words, good vibes, good people around you.
Yeah,
for the most part.
I consider myself a fan of God. Yeah. I like his work. He's done some good work, I know there's some experimental stuff that I don't understand, but I'm really into his deep cuts. Yeah, I like
deep cuts.
That's sacrilegious when you talk about Catholic. I didn't mean it in that way.
Just earlier, like maybe an hour ago, I saw somebody post something. What was it called? Vidiverse. Supposedly, Vidiverse is going to be a new platform for independent filmmakers.
What?
Yeah, so it might be something you want to look into.
Why didn't the boss of the internet tell me directly? Because Vidiverse, is it like Vidiverse.com or something like that?
I'm not sure if it's live yet. It might just have been like this is coming up because it was a pretty long post going over a lot of details.
Okay.
But yeah, it looked really interesting. Are you like? I was curious if you were part of doing anything over what the heck's it called? The new video platform. TikTok. Yeah. TikTok.
Oh no. I'm happy enough with Instagram, and it's funny, TikTok, and I'm one of the people that would always make fun, like like if you're over a certain age, but
right.
it seems to be working great for some creators that go on there and do stuff. But I honestly, very happy with Instagram. Just that's a good platform for me, and then Facebook, just because I'm grandfathered in. That's like this is a perfect example. We're doing this live, and it's on Facebook, my animation page on Facebook. So it's like it is kind of a good. I'll tell you what though, I did a thing this last year called Gym TV, which is like MTV, but I would play video. It was a live Facebook watch party, and I would just play my favorite music videos, and people would do requests and stuff too. And it was live. I would do it on Saturday nights, sometimes Friday nights, and would do it for like 4 hours, 5 hours sometimes. Nice. And I would have like 30 people watching, 15 people, 30 people, 10 people. And people loved it. And it was during the pandemic too. So that gave everybody, and it was also during the Trump presidency, with a lot of political, clashing. And it was a place where people could go, and people didn't matter who you voted for. Like once you went there, you were just there to watch videos, and people would get in the chats, and it was a lot of fun. And then Facebook ended their watch party feature. So it's like that. So that's why the pandemic flourished, because of that, because they ended the Gym TV. So God didn't like it. So
that's just a warning.
It was a warning. Yeah. So bring it back. Bring it back. No, I love like 80s music, and I love music in general, 80s, 70s, 60s. My knowledge kind of stops after like 90s, but that's okay.
Yeah, there's still people saying that, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's how some people are like that with comics. Bronze. I like Bronze Age only.
Yeah,
like me. That's all I know.
Well, I mean, it's like what I say is, sort of like the inspiration and sort of what I'm building the foundation of retro on is comics I read from the 60s to the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm very inspired by a lot of books I read growing up, you know, artists and writers and all that. When heroes were heroes and villains were villains and all that jazz.
You know, when I was, because I'd say from the ages of, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 until I was 15-ish, I was really into it. I bought a lot of comics. I was a big John Byrne fan. I was a big Mike Zeck fan, like the X-Men. You know, just there's a few artists that I was a big fan of. And like my dream back then was to like, I gotta meet somebody, like meet 4 people that are into comic art and creating comics. And one of them, I could do the pencils and I could write it, and I could find somebody to ink it, and then be another person to color it, another person to letter it. You know, it's like a whole bit. We could have a team.
Yeah.
And I didn't know one other person that did that. So, but now with the internet, like you could really do that now. Like you could live in, you know, Philadelphia, do the pencils, and then send it to some guy in, you know, Toronto, and then he sends it to a guy in Manila, and then that guy in Manila sends it. You know, you could really collaborate, you know, digitally from long distance like that now. Like I wonder if people do that. They probably do.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Like, you know, I'm originally from Brooklyn, you know, born and raised.
Where's that at? Is that on the East Coast? No, I'm kidding.
It's a small town next to Manhattan.
Oh, it's where Welcome Back Kotter was. Okay, now I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Love that show. But now I'm living out in Kentucky, and you know, it's like as long as I have internet, even though my internet is crappy, because I'm in a small town in Kentucky.
Do you know Justin Stewart? Justin 3000?
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine.
We did, when there was a theater that served beer out in Lexington.
Yeah,
Justin is.
And that's where he's doing the 6 board bombs.
Yeah, we did live art at the theater, like before the movie. And that was a real hit and lots of fun. Then we get drunk and watch a Marvel movie.
Trivia fact: I know Justin from the early 2000s, and Justin, I was there when Justin did his first live art ever. It was at we were in Dallas, Texas, for our friend Scott Hines' wedding, and I think that's why is that why we're there? No, we might have been there not for the wedding. I don't know, but anyways, it was in Dallas, and we did live art at a and it was my first time doing live art, and at a nightclub or something, and I just remember my back killed me afterwards, and I was a youngster, so that wasn't old manism yet, but yeah, my back really was like, this is tough, man. Live art's physical, but he just kept going with it. He's great.
Yeah, I mean, like he's done it a bunch of times, and he's used to. Like I work flat. I used to work at an angle, like have a real artboard, which I do to my right. But this is just a giant office desk, and it's completely flat that I work on.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, but to work on a vertical thing it's a challenge, man. It's a challenge.
Yeah, big time. Did you say that you did some live art too?
Well, with him and his friends.
Yeah,
you know, I did it a bunch of times, drove out there and met up, and you know, it was mostly an excuse to see the next Marvel movie that was in you know, a showing.
Yeah.
Make a couple of bucks, you know.
Yeah, I love live art. I've done it a few times. It's always been good.
Yeah. I'd love to do it again. You know, hopefully one day this pandemic will totally be behind us, and live stuff will be a thing again. You know, I know like certain things are opening up and there's conventions happening, but certain other places are closing down. I can't keep track anymore.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just wear a full hazmat suit all the time, everywhere I go. But I was doing that before the pandemic too. So
I just live underwater. That solves everything.
yeah, that's a good plan. Yeah. No, Justin is an awesome guy, and he's out in the Lexington area. I stayed at his house before too. Why was I in Lexington? I just visited him. Oh no, because okay. Here's another. I'm dropping names now. Big celebrities. Jersey Draws, DR. Yeah, you know who that is Jersey. He used to do Jersey. We used to do a show called Art and Story.
Yep.
And they had comics. I think it was called Comics Are for Kids or something that are kids read
comics. Are great.
It was a festival. It was the first one, and we went.
Right.
Went out. Did they fly us out to it or something? I don't remember, but my wife and I went out there and we stayed with Justin, and then we went and did live art that night at a thing, and then the convention where Mark Rudolph was also there, and a bunch of other people. Now it's funny. I wonder who is there that I know now that I didn't know then, like didn't run into. Like there's probably people that same circles. Right. But it was great. It was awesome. It was a fun time. But we got to see Lexington. We got to go to a second story abandoned. It wasn't abandoned like we broke in, but it was a unused. I don't know if it was a restaurant or a banquet hall on the second floor of some building that was not that far from the university, and we got to draw on the walls. Like they said, yeah, you can. And we did live art on the walls, and it's so funny because I think Justin, myself, and maybe one or two other people were the only people that had ever done that before. So people are like, what's live art? Are you going to do like a performance? I'm like, no, it's just basically legal graffiti. It's legal drawing on a wall. And we had a good time. Yeah. Jersey's a really good guy too. It was really nice meeting him. And Mark too, Mark Rudolph.
Yeah. I mean, because of Art and Story, a lot of us connected.
Yeah.
Like I know Marshall Lee from back then. I know, like so many people.
Yeah, I know Mark Marshall from, well, actually, even going further back, way back machine, that before Art and Story was Fanboy Radio. That's where I know Justin from. And Scott Hines was the host of that. I don't know if are you familiar with Fanboy Radio? Do you remember it?
I remember listening to it, yeah.
Yeah, it was Scott Hines was the host. Oliver Tull was the co-host. There were guys like David Hopkins, comic book writer, Justin. There's a bunch of folks, a whole crew of people that were on that. And it was actually on the radio too, FM radio from Dallas. And that's actually when I got into the whole comic. That's why my whole family thinks I do comic books. Because I'm in all these comic book events and I know all these comic book creators who are 100% of you guys are insane. And but I love it in a good way. Yeah, at least. But no, I find, okay, this is going to be sacrilegious towards the animation community, but I don't care. But I think comic book creators are, in general, a lot nicer and cooler and more fun than a lot of animators. And that's not all animators, because I know a few animators and there's a few of them that are really cool, but I'm talking about like the established, like corporate anime, like what I mean, like that work for big companies and stuff. They're just into different things, a different sensibility that I'm into. I have a lot more in common with comic book people than I do animation people, and that's because my animation is so stagnant; it doesn't move. No, that's because comic book creators are just, I don't know. You guys are more down to earth, in my opinion. But that being said, I do know a lot I can think of 7, 8, maybe 10 animators that I know personally that are really fantastic people on screen and off. But I will not name them unless you ask me. Yes.
Like who?
Like Bill Plimpton, name dropper Bill Plimpton.
Yeah.
This guy who does sick animation. He's great.
Nice.
This guy's, I met him in person. He's a really great guy. And that's it.
Right.
Okay. No, my friend Drew. My friend Drew is Drew Tunes. He's a great animator.
Okay.
I'm running out of people, but just all the other ones I'm not. Other ones I'm not naming, but you know who you are. That's how I cover myself. You know who you are.
I have some friends. Let's see if I can pronounce the name of the show. Guggen. No.
Good and rotten.
No. It's
Goonie Goo Goo.
it's a Japanese show. And it has robots in it. I forget now. Guggen Ragin? No, I can't pronounce it. Anyway, Guggenheim. Space on a building.
You know those German, Japanese guys.
Anyway, I have some friends that actually use some professionals for their campaign video, and it was pretty neat.
Oh, that's awesome. By the way, Japanese anime, Japan and France are the two countries that, man, I wish the U.S. would follow them into the way they approach animation, because it's just like
what's happening in France nowadays. Like, I'm not aware of.
It's just that they make animated films about whatever. It doesn't have to be. There doesn't have to be a. I mean, there is, but there doesn't have to be a magical element to everything. It doesn't have to be a talking, raccoon or it doesn't have to be
a story.
Standard. Yeah. It's like they'll do an animation about a father and his relationship with his kids, and then it's just weird. It's like they'll just do about. It's a medium that they'll cover any kind of a story in, whereas the U.S. rarely does that. The U.S. usually, if it's animated, it because we're kind of conditioned that it has to be, like sci-fi or something that you've seen before, or something fantastic, which is cool and obviously works. But I just like if it was music, for example. You don't want everything to sound like the same three things over and over. You want to have things that are, and animate. And I'm not talking about independent animation. I'm talking about what we see. Like if somebody said there's a new animated series released on Netflix, you're gonna 9 times out of 10 it's gonna be 3D animated. 9 times out of 10 it's gonna be animals that talk. 9 times out of 10 it's gonna be, made for a certain age group. 70-year-old. 75-year-olds. No, but it's gonna and I'm like, put it to you this way: when going way back, when Britney Spears was like on the radio everywhere, back then, I never hated on her. I never was like, are they playing her all the time? Why don't they play XYZ? Why don't they play this? I never said that, but I always thought, well, that's cool. There's room for her in the pool. But there also should be room for other people too. And then satellite radio came out, and then that's what that is. Like if you want this, it's available. If you want this, it's available. That's how I wish corporate animation was, more like that. Like, okay, well, if you want what's already out there, that's cool. That's there. But if you want, animation that's, adult animation, and I wish there was another word for adult animation, but if you want to, there's this. If you want a movie that's like, Steel Magnolias, but animated. That should exist somewhere. That should. But also the audiences, we're kind of in the U.S. I don't think we're like used to that, so we're not ready for it. It'll take time, but it could happen. It could happen, and they're doing it in Japan and they're doing it in France. Plus, I love the way French animation. I love the way a lot of the art looks too, because this is a big factor, because their art looks like the artist's hand, which is a big deal. To me, that's a huge deal, because I'd say 80%, 85% of the 3D animation that's out there, including Pixar, kind of looks the same. It all it's hard to tell that, like, from the character design. It's like, are you guys with DreamWorks, or are you with Pixar, or it's like they all came from the same mold, and it's cool, it works, but it's nice to see like French animation done in the artist's hand, and this guy looks different than this one, and her animation looks different than his, and his looks different from hers. I like that. I like individuality. Obviously that's all my cartoons are powered on, by the way. Is that,
right. Yeah, I mean, I have seen, like, I'm pretty sure, like, a French cartoon spotlighted within the last couple of years. I mean, I haven't watched it, but I remember hearing about it. And yeah, it's like, the thing with America is, like, it's almost like they're just trying to create the next, not necessarily blockbuster, but just property that will fit into the cog. And
I don't think that those, every example that I gave for like France and Japan, I don't think those guys are going home with millions and millions of dollars. Like, I don't think it makes them rich, probably.
Right.
But that's why everything looks kind of the same in the US, is because there's so much money involved on both ends, creating it, and then afterwards, like, you make a lot of money on it. And when you're playing at those stakes, it's like they don't want to, which would you rather open, Charlie's Hamburger Paradise or a McDonald's franchise? Because people are going to go to the McDonald's. So you just, and it's kind of like that with animation and film in general. They don't want to take chances because that's when you lose money. But we all know, if you look at the 70s, early 70s, that's when people were taking, late 60s, early 70s, they were taking chances. And that was kind of the thing. It was like, if you want to make money, you have to make something really different and edgy, And then I think in the late 70s, when the blockbusters started happening, which are great. I love Jaws, and I love Star Wars. I love all those. But I think that people started saying, oh, well, you can make a lot of money making movies. A lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, like, they talk about, because of the pandemic, of that altering, and we'll see what develops. But, as for animation that's experimental in the US, MTV had Liquid Television. Is that right?
Yeah, and isn't it, everyone still brings that up? That's kind of ironic? That shows you what I mean. That was 20 years ago. And there's nothing out there. I mean, Adult Swim's out there, but even they. Yeah.
Not necessarily great animation, but
there should be, and there needs to be a channel, a network that is all independent animation.
I think
why I'm here to ask for your funding.
Yes. I think, like, I don't know if you've seen Netflix, the Love, Death,
and Robots. I love it. Yes, I saw it. It's incredible.
But that looks like to be like big budget stuff.
Yeah. So here's my impression of everyone that when they watch that show, at some point, maybe not every episode, but at some point, the average viewer that turns that show on and watches it goes, that's really cool. I could watch a whole movie like that. Or that's really cool. I could watch a whole series like this. I wish they would do something like this, because it is so cool, and it's so edgy and groundbreaking and different, and it has the artist's hand to it too. And and then Corey's saying Cake on Hulu is a weird indie animation too. You know what, Corey? I've heard of that. I need to watch that because I do have Hulu. I got to watch that. I need to watch more animation instead of just making it.
Yeah.
In Japan and France, there's an entire comics about loving food. I heard about that. Yeah.
I know, like, in Japan, they make comics about everything.
Yeah, that's
So I could
yeah.
see them doing the same thing with animation. Like, I don't know like what format it would take. I don't know what Japanese television is like, other than all the game shows I've seen that are entirely weird.
Yeah, Triplets of Belleville. Josh mentions that in the chat, and that's one of my favorite cartoons.
Yeah, that's not too long ago that came out, right? Or at least
it's been a while.
Released in the U.S. Well, within the last 10 years.
So, are you familiar with Beetlejuice from the Howard Stern Show? Because he's one of the whack packers that calls in, little guy, and then every time they ask him something, they go, how much do you weigh, Beetlejuice? And he'll be like, about 400 or 500 pounds, you know. Like
the black midget.
Yes, when you ask me a date, like how long ago was that? I turn into him, and I want to say 20 years ago. Yeah, it's about 20 years ago. My wife, she corrects me all the time. She'll be like, "Yeah, Jim, remember we were at that art gallery and we saw that lady with the thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, how long ago was that?" And be like, "Oh, about 7 years." She's like, "No," my wife will step forward and goes, "No, that was 3 years ago." And like, I am so bad with years and dates and things like that.
Yeah, my ex does the same thing.
It goes into a box. 20 years ago. That's old man syndrome, I think.
I could tell you, I could tell you directors and actors in movies. I could tell you writers and artists of comics, but I can't tell you the continuity of my life.
So Corey in the chat, Corey says, "I've told you to watch Cake several times. The Drifters is custom made for Jim." I'm going to pretend like I have. I'm going to, even when I watch Cake, I'm going to say that I haven't. So Corey just loses his mind. I'm determined. Be like, I'm going to check that show out one day. Whitebeard. But I will write that down.
I will say, like, since the time I've known you and you're still doing to today is you're making your own animations, regardless of, like popular demand or what have you. You're finding, you're putting it out there and you're finding the fans that want that sort of thing.
Yeah, I said a long time ago, if I could choose any kind of following, any kind of fan base that I would want a cult following, because they're very loyal. Even though it's a smaller group, they're very loyal. And it's like, be careful of what you ask for, because you will get it most likely. So instead of having massive, my stuff is very niche, but the people that like it love it, and I love them as well. When I create something, every time I create something new, I'm trying to learn a little bit more, try things I haven't tried. So I'm not exactly doing the same thing. It may look the same, but I'm learning things behind the scenes. And also, most importantly, do stories that really, that are interesting to me, things that like motivate me to finish them. Because otherwise, if I was just trying to get numbers, I would do, what would be the most, for the people in the chat room, what would be the most popular sellout move I could do to make, what kind of animation? It would feature what? Like it would have, probably have something like no, I'm thinking like it'd have Ariana Grande versus trying to think of like Tekashi 6ix9ine, and they're fighting and they're in mech robots. And I'm just trying to think of all the most popular things out there. Like I would do a cartoon like that. I would do, something that's super current, I don't know. It's out there. There's people doing that, and that's great. And they do get big numbers. But for me, this sounds so corny, but it's like a legacy at work. I mean, you know what I mean by that. Yeah. That's like when, if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, I want my work to speak to generations that are out there. And one day, when my head is in a glass jar, and I'm speaking to a college of robots. Then I could look back and say, look at these stupid cartoons I made. Aren't they wonderful? Yes, they are. And that's when they reanimate me. And but no, I do. I mean, at the end of the day, you want work that you're Joshua says, an educational kids cartoon. Yeah, I mean, fuses hip hop with learning the alphabet. Yeah. B is for bitches. But it's Gary says, this is why I started to manifest fans who are rich without a family, so they will put me in their will. Very good. I am going to make cartoons for very old, rich women who like Latino guys. So, which is everyone, really. All rich old women with millions of dollars to give, right? So,
oh yeah,
why not?
they're out there.
They're out there.
I mean,
or men,
yeah.
Dollars,
Be open about it.
Dollars. At the end of the day, says Magic Michael.
I mean, animation isn't too far off from comics in the sense of the level of respect we get out there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Somebody. I mean, it's interesting when you tell someone you're an animator, they have no idea. They think so technical. They're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. It's almost like if I said, I build statues that move. They're like, how do you do that? They have no concept. When you tell someone you do comics, it depends on the person and their age usually, because they're like, oh, you mean like you do like Veronica and Betty, or they go, yeah, like Prince Valiant.
Nobody does that.
I met Prince Valiant, and I remember he had a horse named Cutthroat. No, I don't know what his horse's name. But yeah, it's well, I told you, I say this as well. My family members always say, like, Jimmy, how's your comics coming along, Jimmy? They always ask me that. I was like, I don't do comic books, okay? But there was a time where I thought I wanted to be a comic book artist too, and that went out the window. Well, mainly because of distractions. I was a youngster, and when I really started looking into it, I realized and this sounds funny coming from an animator, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I mean, look at this is a perfect example. People look at the work you put. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do that amount of work, I want my things to have music, voices, and move a little bit, So plus I wanted to be a filmmaker too. Live action is and still is never out of the question. But I don't do live action because I really like being able to actually make my films come to reality. And with live action, there's so many factors involved. Locations, actors. It's just more expensive to do, and just plus this scratches every itch for me. Designing the characters, I love that. I love the plotting out like you do with comics, with my animation, and the part I hate is lip sync. Corey Kerr can tell you how much we hate doing lip sync, but we have to. And Corey especially hates it. Yeah. But look at the chat has become like a shout out to weird old cartoons. Sally Worth in the house. Apartment 3G. I will say this, Peter. I will say this. I unironically love the Family Circus, and I know.
I love it. Yeah.
I love it. Like, there's people that hate it, hate it. But I love the Family Circus. I like the Family Circus. Garfield, not Garfield. I take that back. Heathcliff. Heathcliff as a kid was huge. I always preferred Heathcliff to Garfield. Heathcliff was more. He's more street cred. No, he was more. He's a rougher cat. I liked him. Mother Goose and Grimm. Remember that one?
Okay, yeah.
That was a great one. Drabble. I met the creator of Drabble right before the pandemic. And he's super. Drabble. No, Drabble's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. But those were ones, and of course, Peanuts. Everybody loves that one. But yeah, I remember getting the Sunday Funnies. I remember getting them and every.
Yeah, I read them all because my father used to, he worked 6 days a week and he brought home like 2 or 3 papers every day. So I would always go to the comic section. I loved a lot of strips. One of my early favorites was Dick Tracy.
Yes. You know what the king of the strips is, though? To me, there's one that sits above all.
Hagar?
Not Hagar. Sammy Hagar. No. No. In my opinion, the greatest of all time is The Far Side. That was my favorite. I love The Far Side. Like The Far Side, literally, when people say like, "Oh my God, it made me laugh out loud," like I rarely laugh out loud. I'm usually at traffic accidents, but that's inappropriate. But no, but The Far Side, when I would read The Far Side, I would laugh out loud. I would totally it was that funny and weird, and I loved it. Yeah, the Cats and Jammer Kids. Yeah.
that's
Everybody just shout out like a really bizarre. You know which the ones that were really weird were, what's her name? Mary, the old lady. What was her name? Wasn't there one Mary? Was it Sally? No, Mary Worth. No, was it Sally Worth or Mary Ford? I don't know. The old lady. She'd give advice. She'd give advice. The weirdest thing as a kid, I'd read that and go, "Who the hell reads these?"
Sally Worth.
No, not is it Sally? You mentioned it earlier, Gary. What's the cartoon with the old lady and she would give advice? I don't know what. Not Mother Goose and Grimm. I like that one. There were some strange. Rex Morgan, MD. How about that one?
What was the actress one? Blase or I forget the name.
I didn't get that paper. We got the LA Times.
There was some fancy drawn actress in a comic strip. I forget.
Was the one that I was already not reading the Sunday Funnies when Calvin and Hobbes came around. I feel like I missed the boat on that one because I look at Calvin and Hobbes and go, "Oh my God, I would have loved this," but it was not in the papers when I was a kid. Oh, it might have been. Was it? No, I'm too old for that. It came around when I was already not kind of reading Calvin and Hobbes.
Winsor McKay, fantastic work.
Joshua, Gary, Corey, somebody quick. What's the old lady's name? Is that Mary? Mary, I could have sworn her name's Mary something. Maybe it was Sally.
Was it like a 3-panel strip? Was it a single image?
It was a 3-panel strip. It was drawn like Sally Forth or whatever her name is. It might be Sally Forth. Is she an old lady?
Kathy?
Kathy. No, not Kathy.
Dear Abby.
Not Dear Abby. Not Dear Abby. Damn it. What is the name of that old lady? It was Miss Crotchety, I think. That was it. What the heck was her name? Before we're over, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Google an old lady comic strip. See what comes up. But yeah, there was some strange. I love this. I love
so many. Yeah. I was a big fan of Gil Kane, and Gil Kane did a strip. It was like Star Wars, but it was called Star Hawks.
Wow, that somehow sounds familiar.
I love that. That was one I cut out. I cut out and had a pile of of the strips.
Oh my God. There, Peter, you just opened up a Pandora's box. You just reminded me how much I love this. There was a whole genre of Star Wars knockoffs that happened right after the original Star Wars came out. I mean, tons and tons of movies. And some were actually, gosh, in my memory, they were good, but they're probably terrible. Remember Battle Beyond the Stars? That's so. I loved that movie as a kid. That had Richard Thomas, who's John Boy, and he flew a spaceship that had breasts on it. I just remember, and it was so. I remember seeing that as a kid, going, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And then, oh my gosh, everybody, throw out your favorite Star Wars ripoff movie. There was, remember the Black Hole, Disney's Black Hole.
Black Hole was good.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I still to this day haven't seen it. Battlestar Galactica was actually the same. It was the same thing. It totally bit off of Star Wars. The TV show. Troll. There's one. Troll was another one. There's a ton that are just like they all have the word star in them or wars.
Some more as well. Like, come on.
Star battle. And it has, and they have always have something that's like a lightsaber, Hey, pass me my flame saber.
Yeah, it was much.
That was a good one too.
Yeah, that was one they should remake. Last Starfighter.
So please post Gary's. I remember liking the Clack Hole. He meant to write Black Hole, but it's funnier that you wrote Clack Hole. Because please post that, because Clack Hole is now officially the best put down for somebody. Hey, you acting like a real Clack Hole over there, kid.
Stop being such a Clack Hole.
Yeah, Clack Hole. Mongon. By the way, I did a film called 7 Smiles, and in it, there's a mobster, like an Italian mobster, and he's at a bar and he gets mad at the bartender or something. And I didn't want to use a real Italian slur or anything, so I just made up one, and it sounds so good. I want to use it more, but it's mangon. Hey, what's wrong with you? Some kind of mangon? Huh? It sounds so real, mangon. So I'm gonna trademark that word, mangon. MANGON, mangon. Yeah, you acting like a real mangon, you Clack Hole.
It's not like it's piranha.
Yes, please, everyone, please note Clack Hole from now on. Start using it in your daily put downs. When you go flame people on the internet, call them a Clack Hole. You're acting like a real Clack Hole. What kind of Clack Hole president are you? Oh, here's one. Beastmaster, not Star Wars ripoff, but Beastmaster. Do you remember that with Mark Singer? I think his name was.
Yeah.
God, I love that.
Okay, so the strip I was thinking of was Modesty Blaze.
Never.
Newspaper. No, it's too before your time, probably.
Sounds like a stripper name.
Gentlemen,
put your hands together now for Modesty Blaze.
Yeah, she's got no modesty.
But she's got lots of blaze. Mark Singer in the Beastmaster was fantastic. I saw that in the theater 3 times. I sat through 2 showings back to back. I was a kid. And then it's because my parents forgot me. They left without me. No, but Joshua says Modesty Blaze works at the Clack Hole. That's true. Yes, on Thursday night she doesn't. Modesty Blaze. The Clack Hole is a great buffet. You got to try it. So the Clack Hole. I'm gonna have to use that. I need to use Clack Hole in a film somehow. That's so good. Oh, what a mangon, huh? Hey,
you
you said you grew up in Brooklyn?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a deep accent. But people around here say I have a Brooklyn accent.
You're similar from England to me. Has anyone, and this is ridiculous, and I don't think this, Peter, but has anyone ever asked you, "Hey, are you from Boston?" Or anything?
No, I don't think I ever got that. No.
No, I mean, you don't have a Boston accent, but I'm just wondering if somebody from California might ask you that.
Right? Yeah.
Boston accent?
I
No.
say I'm living in Kentucky, and they say you don't sound like you're from Kentucky.
You totally you're from Kentucky. So you living in Kentucky, moving from the East Coast, were you in Brooklyn before you moved to Kentucky, or were you somewhere else?
Yeah.
Did you live in Brooklyn right before Kentucky, or was there a place in between?
Oh, no, I went. Well, I was living in Staten Island, was the last place in New York, because I lived in all the 5 boroughs.
Oh, really?
I mean, in Manhattan, very briefly. In Bronx, maybe a month or two. But mostly, Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island.
Wow.
I was walking distance from the ferry, and that was amazing because it's just like such a nice ride into the city.
In Long Island.
No, I had a girlfriend out there for a brief time, but she was the art director of "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker," the movie.
Oh, wow! Yeah. Where do the toughest people in New York live? Where would you say?
The toughest? Not where I live. I don't know.
Where do you ever live in any neighborhoods where you're like, okay, don't go on this block?
Well, usually like I've passed plenty of places like you can easily like take the train through really bad neighborhoods but not know it. But when you're driving around and it looks like a movie set of the future dystopia, then I've seen areas of Queens and Brooklyn like that. And
in the 90s, when I went to New York for the first time, and my cousin and I went, and we walked across the Brooklyn Bridge,
right?
And then we kept walking, and then we walked where all these warehouses were. Like we're just walking and walking and walking by ourselves, and there's nobody around there. And then we told our friends that we were staying with, who are from New York, we told them where we were walking, and they're like, "You guys are idiots. You will get murdered if you walk there." And
right. Yeah, that's like they took those areas, and that's where all like the yuppie artists moved in.
Oh,
like,
really? So it's
now it's like expensive and trendy.
Yeah. I wonder which is worse, New York or San Francisco for pricing for housing and apartments and stuff.
Well, I moved. It's like I moved out of New York because I don't make 6 figures, because like I lived there most of my life, and I love being there. But to really enjoy it and have a nice place, you got to make a decent wage. And I decided, I moved out to Kentucky because I had a friend here. He said, come stay with our family for a little while until you get set up. And that's what I did. And, he was living at the time in Bardstown, which is a beautiful town. It's beautiful. It's like the fastest growing town in Kentucky. And
that Justin Stewart runs Kentucky. Did you run this by him before you moved there? Did you get his permission?
Who runs it?
Justin Stewart, Justin 3000. He runs it.
Oh, well, he didn't give me approval.
Write him an email right away.
Yeah.
But,
I think you said Jon Stewart. I was like, listen,
Jon Stewart. He doesn't have to go to New York. So Corey Kerr in the chat. Corey Kerr says, "I hear most Brevian rappers have clack hole." Now, let me tell you the story. What a Brevian is. There is a fictional country I created called Bretvia. And I did this because I didn't want to be murdered by Russians or people from the Ukraine, because I did a story about gangsters, and so I created a country called Bretvia, which is Eastern European, but I never say where in Europe it is. But and there's all kind, and so it was about a rap group. These two guys that came out of there, they were doing rap. They're called Dollar Money. And they're like, yeah, dollar money in the house, And it's in a film I did called All That Glitters. So everybody that knows Peter, go watch that right away. Because I think I get a 0.4 cents for every view. I get no cents for every view, but actually. But,
you get 4 cents for every 4,000 views.
I pay myself. Did you say Jews or views? Because I could have sworn I heard you say Jews, but I know
That's it for you.
You're from New York, so
yeah,
By the way, speaking, have you ever had Jewish food at all? It's fantastic. It's a whole other subject, but it's so good.
Not so much. Not so much. I mean, my mom was a great cook, and we got spoiled, and so, now I eat crap.
There's a place out here in LA called Cantor's Deli. It's a very famous Jewish deli, and they have the best matzah I've ever had in my life. The soup there is so good, and I was just going to make up a bunch of terms because I can't think of any.
I'm sure I've had Jewish food, but it's like when I was young, I used to eat everything. That's the kind of kid I was. So I'm sure I had Jewish, because I grew up in essentially, it was mixed, but it was like Jewish, Irish, and Italian, and that sort of mix. And if you walk 10 blocks, then it was all Jewish.
And Joshua Kimball in our chat, he's been to Cantor's with me. He had a great pastrami on rye there. They have one of the best pastrami in the LA area. So have you ever been to LA?
No, I've only been like San Diego.
Give you a little education on LA. So LA is like Disneyland, where it's broken up into different lands.
Right.
You have over here, you have rich Hollywood executive land over here. And you have on the outskirts of that, you have all of the sycophants of Hollywood that want to be in Hollywood and will do anything to anyone at any time to get into movies and things like that. And then it spreads out. You have the desert, which is like, if that was a land, it would be like meth land. So the desert is huge, and there's lots of towns out there. That's a developing thing. Then where I live is called the San Gabriel Valley, which when I was a kid and I used to hear them talk about valley girls and things like that, I always thought they were talking about my valley. But no, they were talking about the valley, which is northwest of me, I think. And but in the San Gabriel Valley, speaking of mixed ethnicities, there's lots of Latino, lots of Asian. It's a great big mix, and you can get the best food out here. I'm sorry, Other Valley, but we got some really good ethnic food. And then there's the valley. So LA is like, when people say LA, like, oh, you live in La La Land. It's really, you can get any kind of group or area out here. It's a real great mix, and that, to me, that is a big reason of why a lot of my films are based in the LA surrounding areas too. I've ventured out a couple of times. I did a cartoon that takes place in New York City. I've done stuff that takes place, just in other places. But for the most part, it's always I like Southern California or California in general because there's so much out. Like it's very, very diverse out here, very diverse. But you wouldn't know that by watching TV. You would never know that because they only focus on the same, 3 things all the time, same 3 areas on them. But they do that with New York too.
Yeah. I mean, it's like lots of things. I learned how many movies and TV shows are based in New York. When I moved here, it's like, oh, I'm homesick. It's like every time I turn on the TV, it's like
people that aren't from New York think that if you go to like upstate New York, way upstate, they think that it's everywhere, and all of New York State would be like, I'm walking over here,
Yeah.
It's like it's not. It's you go upstate New York, it's a whole different vibe, and it's beautiful.
Totally.
It's beautiful too. That's another thing too. People are on movies and things like that. You don't get to see as much of how beautiful New York is, the state I'm talking about, because you only see New York City. New York State is beautiful. It's like really, really, and same thing with New Jersey too. New Jersey's beautiful.
I mean, movies aren't a depiction of real life, like for the most part. So it's
only John Hughes movies spoke to me as a 16-year-old girl, mostly. By the way, I watched 16 Candles the other day. It was we were at staying at a hotel, and it was on HBO, and I was just like, I'm gonna check this out. And I kind of wanted the house to explode from a gas explosion because I hated everybody in that movie. It's like, oh my God, like everyone and every character in that film, I'm like, it didn't age well. And I remember at the time liking it. I liked it when I first saw it, but it's like now it's just like
16 Candles. That's with Ducky, John Cryer.
No, no, that's Pretty in Pink. That's a different.
Oh, Pretty in Pink. That's right. Pretty in Pink.
I remember I was in high school.
Yeah.
Was out. I was in high school, and I remember thinking, "That's not how high school students talk." Like they're way too much. Sure. Yeah.
It's strange, like, because I've seen plenty of movies with actors that like maybe a year older than me, and I think they're like 5, 8 years older than me. It's like really weird.
Welcome Back Kotter. They're all in high school. He's like, "Hey, Mr. Kotter." He's like in his 30s.
Mr. Kotter. Yeah.
Mr. Kotter. As a kid, I used to love Ron Epstein. He was my hero. That was my favorite character on that show as a kid.
Here's
another thing. Here's how old I am. I'm old enough to remember John Travolta before he was on Saturday Night Fever. That's how before he was. And the other thing too, I was just telling somebody this the other day. A youngster, a youth. I was telling them, you guys don't know this, but John Travolta was like, he went from blockbuster TV show to blockbuster movie, Saturday Night Fever. Then he went to Grease right after that. Big, maybe even bigger than Saturday Night Fever. And then people forget, then he went to Urban Cowboy like 4 years later, 3 years later. Everyone was wearing cowboy hats with roach clips on them. And so this guy was like the touchstone for like
American culture.
Yeah, culture.
Yeah.
Like he was like if there's a Mount Rushmore of people that influenced pop culture, he's got to be on there. It would be John Travolta, Jared from Subway, Bill Cosby, and of course, Art Linkletter. There's a mix. No, but he's got to be. He's got to be on there. John Travolta's the real deal. That's why when Pulp Fiction came around, and it was like the return of Travolta. I think another thing too, people forget when Pulp Fiction came around, and you saw John Travolta, you're like, is he wearing prosthetics? Like, is he chubby? Like, because we remember ripped John Travolta, like, you know, the thin John Travolta, really thin. And
Right.
that's the problem. You set the bar too high. That's why you should never get into too good of shape, because then you'll look back and go like, wow, you really got fat. But if you're just like kind of chubby all the way through, you know, like, hey, you're not as chubby as you were 5 years ago. You're still chubby, just not as chubby.
That's like Thor's problem.
Good job.
Like 10 years from now, we'll have to hide.
There's a new Thor movie coming out too, right?
Yeah. Logan something.
I normally don't like when they take source material and go really radically different from what the source material is. But I will say this. I totally bought into and enjoyed Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok.
Ragnarok is my favorite Marvel movie. Yeah, I can watch that 100 times. I can watch it.
When you watch it, don't you get the feeling where when you're watching it, like, you know, as bizarre as this movie is, they're kind of capturing a comic book feel.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, the colors, the costume, Jeff Goldblum, the costume he's wearing, the colors, everything, and it's funny. And that director did such a good job with it that I'm looking forward to Love and Thunder. I think I instantly became a fan of that guy, that director. He's a real deal. He did, and then he's done work on The Mandalorian too.
Yeah, and he does bit parts. He's in Free Guy a little bit.
I always say his name wrong. Takiti. It's coming from a guy whose last name is Lujan, who gets my name gets mangled all the time. Lujan.
Yeah. Pavarotti.
So I'll tell you a quick story. I met a guy from Kenya whose name, and I'm going to tell you his exact name, was Juan Gonzalez. And he was from Kenya, and he was African. Well, because he's from Kenya. Most Kenyans are African. Or if you're from Kenya. It's a little history lesson. But so I met him, and but I knew his name before I met him. I knew I was going to meet a guy named Juan Gonzalez. And so I met him, and he came in, and he was an African guy. And like, oh my God, I had to be honest, Juan, when I saw you, I was expecting a Latino. He goes, when I saw you, I was expecting a Chinese man. Because he thought my name was Lujan. Like, Chinese. And then we proceeded to rob the casino together, because that's why we were meeting. The end. Happy endings are great. So Gary Hodges says all Kenyans are Africans. Not all Africans are Kenyan. Very good, Jerry. Very good. It's like a square. I don't even know what rhombus thing is. So that's what I get from typing too fast. Kenyans. He wrote Kentons.
Yeah.
What a clock hole or whatever. Clack hole. And yes, Josh Campbell says you should do a kung fu cartoon called Lujan. Actually, you know what's funny? There's an animator. Speaking of animators that I really like, I want you all to go onto YouTube and Google a movie called Have a Nice Day. Write in Have a Nice Day animated film. I think the whole film's on YouTube. Somebody put it up. But the artist of that is named Lu Jiang. It's my name, like Lujan, but with a J-I-A, Lu Jiang. But when it's weird to see it on the screen, directed by Lu Jiang. But I think his first name is Jim.
So you're going to say it's a friend that did a wonderful piece of work.
That guy put out his movie. His movie was distributed by the same company that distributed Revengeance, the movie I did with Bill Plimpton. And I talked to Bill about that, and he said, they're having a hard time making money on that movie because it's independent animation. And our costs on Revengeance were so low that it's considered to do well. Bill was really happy with it, but that's because we
Right.
spent 85 cents on it. So no, I mean, we use Kickstarter like money, and like nobody's getting rich on Revengeance, but at the same time, when you have low overhead, that's good. Yeah, it's a lesson for all the children out there making your own films.
Yeah, that's why you do animation instead of live action. I mean, as well as dealing with all people personalities.
Yeah. You should just put more plants into the artwork, by the way, just in every shot.
More. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll ask you.
I was gonna do a close up on this one. See, this one is a different style. That's more of a silhouette as opposed to that one.
When you're drawing a room, what are you thinking about? Like what you're going to put on the walls? Are you thinking about just mainly the characters? Are you?
Well, I'm like, okay, like as far as penciling, I've done very little. In fact, my very first published work as a penciler, as a penciler, inker, and something I actually wrote was in the D100 anthology book 2, which is just a 4-page story. But yeah, I mean, as far as penciling, it's more conceptual. Like I've thought about it for years, and like I said, I did some webcomic stuff, and I pretty much try to tell a story. So what you include in the panel is what contributes to telling a story. So what's your question?
Oh, when you're drawing a room, like what are you thinking of? Like when you're plotting out, like, oh, there'll be a bookcase here, there'll be a plant here, there'll be a,
I mean, it's like, this is, to me, what he did here was spot on. This is a office in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got, a nice desk, a plant, a big window. That's what you need. You need a nice office chair, pictures of his family, an apple because the teacher was there,
Yeah. You know what you should do when you, just as a joke, next time when you get pencils in from someone, you're going to ink them with one of these.
With a nice marker?
Yeah, just like everything with this giant line.
Well, something I've been doing lately, because I'm really fussy about ink and how ink goes down. So I don't think I have it. I have like pages done that are finished in my other room. So I don't have anything I could show you right here, but I'm not happy with, like, I have to give it a bunch of layers to make it black. So what I do is get this little small bad boy,
yes,
and just fill in the black areas so it gets much blacker. I
think one day when they do autopsies on us, they're going to be like, these men have an inordinate amount of Sharpie in their lungs. I drew a Sharpie for years.
Yeah.
Hey,
go ahead.
When you're doing these, though, you don't use Photoshop to cheat, like to make the blacks, more solid black, or the contrast.
Okay, this is something I'm fussy on because it's my own project. If it's somebody else's, thing that they really won't care, yeah, you can. I mean, I've seen Mike Mignola Hellboy pages where it looks like, he did it with wash, like, and yet when you see the final page, it's pure black.
Yeah.
Because you could do that in an art program and just make it
Yeah. Do
build
you
up the
sell your
contrast.
original artwork? Do you sell that?
Yeah, but it's like unless it's got Batman or Spider-Man on it, and nobody's like not as interested. I have some gorgeous pages, but they have nobody, no popular characters, so nobody cares.
That's why you need to put Batman and Spider-Man in every panel.
Yeah, just like behind the little bush here, I'll put Batman.
Or Jared from Subway.
Or Jared from Subway. Hey, comics mate, Dean. Aren't you taking today off, Dean? He just finished the last page of a comic.
Oh, really?
The Embrace.
That's a good feeling when you just finish a project.
Oh yeah. I can't wait. I can't wait to finish this freaking issue. So I got inking to do, but it's not as much as I had before. Then I'm going to go on to coloring, but I'm coloring it much like an 80s comic book. So it'll be simple, straightforward coloring.
Are you familiar with Benjamin Mara? Do you know who that is? Benjamin. He did a book called Night Business.
Benjamin Mara.
That guy has fantastic. I think he's a great artist. It's a very niche taste.
Right.
But his coloring when he does colors is insane. Really good. Check him out sometime. Like I said, it's very very niche. But if you like it, you'll love it. But his one thing that I don't hear talked about a lot is his colors. His colors are like amazing, really crazy.
I know, like I'm specifically like I showed off this book, Klaus Janssen penciling. I'm specifically thinking of Klaus when he was inking Miller on Daredevil, when he colored himself, because he used very vibrant, like different colors than anybody else was doing at the time, and he even did some special effects when there weren't much in coloring back then. So I'm specifically thinking like going back and rereading issues of Daredevil and really looking at what they were doing color wise. Because there's a lot of inspiration I want to take from that.
I'm sure there's some artists that freak out when the inker puts too much personality into their pencils. Like I liked it when John Byrne would ink things, but it looked like John Byrne. It looked like a John Byrne.
Right.
Like, you might as well have just done the pencils too, because it looked like. But I'm sure some people.
I was watching Richard Friend, and he talks about different artists on his channel and stuff. And he's an inker, but he's also an artist. He's going to be doing his own book. He was talking about Jay Lee, and he was mentioning different inkers he had, Kevin Nolan being one of them, or like Kevin Nolan more inspiration for what Jay Lee was doing artistically. But Kevin Nolan is a heavy inker because all his faces look like Kevin Nolan drew him after he's inked some people, Yeah. Tom Palmer was a heavy inker. Like any artist, it could be any artist, and if Tom Palmer inked it, it looked like Tom Palmer almost drew it. Bill Sienkiewicz is another one. Yeah. I'm flexible. I could give, and I work with pencilers. Like, I ask, like, how heavy do you want me to go? Do you want me to throw all of me on the page, or you just want, light touches here and there, whatever specifically they want to throw? Because I get more work if I'm flexible. So that's why I'm flexible.
And then when you're inking, are there certain pencilers that like, okay, I need to stay exactly on line, or there's pencilers that are like, oh, do whatever you like?
Yeah. I mean, in the work I've done for Marvel and DC, most of what I inked was over Jim Calfury, and he's a very tight penciler. And the first issue of Aquaman that I inked him on, I literally, like, back then there was no computer, everything was done via the phone. I literally went over every page over the phone with him, asking him exactly what he wanted, and he was giving detailed description of do this and just give it little accents, and essentially he wanted me to punch up outlines and stuff like that, like things I would know to do anyway, but I really wanted to impress him and keep the gig in a sense. The first issue of Aquaman we did was a fill-in, and we did a couple more fill-ins. Eventually we became the regular team for a brief while. But yeah, it's like I love working with other artists. This is why I will never stop inking, because it gives me that collaboration.
Peter, I want you to remember this, and you heard it here first, that inkers are the bassists of comic book. The bass players of comics.
Right.
You need if you have a great bass player in a band, it makes a huge difference. If you have a great inker on a book, it makes all the difference. So, yeah. But yet they're not. Usually, bass players, aren't the most celebrated in the band. It's usually the lead guitarist, or most time, a lot of times the drummer. But a bass player is like the root, the solid foundation of a band. It's right there. And same thing with inkers. Inkers like make or break a book to me. I think most people, it makes or break a book. They just don't realize it.
I should ink an animated movie that you create one day.
There you go. Yeah. And then I'll have you do all the lip sync while you're at it. Oh yeah, by the way, I normally use 35 mouth movements for each character, when I really use 2.
Well, we've been going a good amount of time.
Yes, sure.
What haven't we mentioned or brought up or talked about?
Let's see.
That you wanted to touch on.
We talked about our favorite religions.
Food. We covered accents.
Oh my gosh.
Clock holes.
Yes. I want to say thank you. I have 2 brand new patrons this week. So I want to say thank you for that. Patreon's been great, by the way. So there's that. What else? I'm working on a film. At the time of a recording of this, I'm on the home stretch for a film called Pleasure Beast. And it's really funny, and it's going to be a long film. It's going to be close to half an hour, like Infinity Pool was. So nice. After that, I probably will go to do some short films. But and then I will say one thing. On my YouTube channel, my goal for after I do this film, Pleasure Beast, my goal is to make a bunch of, I need to explore my back catalog. I need to start mining that stuff, and I'm going to do some videos about the characters. I'm going to do some videos about a little bit about the process, and I'm going to start releasing like little short studies on that, because I have so much back catalog that I need to start exploiting it, and I do mean exploit when I say
right.
Check me out on YouTube.
I remember you back in the day. I'm not sure where you were streaming, but when you were working on one cartoon, and you were live streaming it, and I remember being in the chat and you talking to the chat, and
probably YouTube or something like that.
I don't know if it was YouTube or it was like livestream.com or whatever. I don't know what early ones they were, but I remember just really enjoying it, and like, you know, I know you haven't done that a lot, but
Yeah, I think maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll do like a scheduled bi-weekly thing, something like that. And then do like, yeah, like on a certain night at a certain time, you know, do a live stream on YouTube. Because for the amount of material that I have on YouTube, I have an anemic number of subscribers. It's not, there's not that. I should have a lot more, but I don't. That's nothing. Something I dwell on. In fact, it's the
Right.
opposite. I need to dwell on that a little bit more because that's how you make things happen. So
Yeah, I've
yeah.
been, you know, I've been trying to like. I realize like I've been on here on YouTube for since I don't know 2012 or whatever, but I haven't been consistent. And it's like I've been making an effort to be a lot more consistent. And this month I've been streaming every day, and I'm having more guests on lately, and
That's good.
doing, you know, group shows kind of thing as
Yeah.
well. And you know, it's a lot more work, yes, but you know, I'm trying to grow my channel, and I'm not going to do this all the time, but you know, for right now, it's working because the community gives you a buzz that, you know, works in many ways,
Yeah.
in just being excited about everything.
Oh, and drawing. I've listened to your show, and I say the
Yeah,
keyword "listen" while I've drawn and I've worked on stuff. It's great to hear two people chat,
yeah,
and just have a real casual conversation. It's something that for years I've always loved to hear other artists talk about their process while I'm creating. It's almost like cooking and watching cooking shows or something like that,
yeah.
or watching Dexter while you carve up a body in your basement.
If
So,
that's your forte, you know.
hey, to each their own. What am I to say? But anyways, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. And again,
Oh,
I want to find that original interview that we did, and I can't find it. It's got to be out there somewhere in the ether net. But
yeah.
it was. I want to do this again sometime. Let's do it tomorrow again. No, I want
Okay.
to. I had a great time, and you're always really easy to talk to. And
Thanks.
I'm sorry. I'm
Appreciate
sorry I stole your credit card information. And you know,
it. Well, you know, I'm sure you'll make it up to me.
everyone makes mistakes, right? Yeah, you got it back most of it. So no, really, Peter, thank you for having me on, and you're doing great work, and you put a lot of really good content out there. So you should get a pat on the
Thanks.
back.
Oh, appreciate it. Jim's links are down below. Check out his YouTube. Check out his Patreon. Do you preview what your next movie is on your Patreon?
Oh,
Are you doing
100%.
that?
100%.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
good. I'm
So,
really good about that. I'm really good.
yeah.
Right now, there's some clips up on my Patreon for Pleasure
Cool.
Beast, like some scenes on there. There's tons of artwork from it. So yeah, if you're my patron, you get to see all of that stuff behind the scenes. And I'm going to continue to do that. And I'll put the whole movie up there, you know, way before anybody else gets to see it.
Excellent.
But I always do that. Same thing with music. I put music up there too, free downloads and stuff like that. So, and I put real photos of aliens. I have. I put if you enter the Kennedy assassination, I have evidence, you know, on there. What else? The lottery numbers. I always put the upcoming lottery numbers on my page. So
you just not in sequence.
Yes,
You know.
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming on. It's always fun. Chat.
Yes.
Thank you everybody who showed up in the chat. Joshua, that guy Jim Lujan, Gary Hodges, Corey Kerr, and Landon just showed up right now. Welcome, man. I'm doing well. Keeping busy, making progress. As always. Yeah. Give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't, and keep creating.
So you got to say hello to Art Salazar, Art Nation. He just jumped in at the last minute. So hello, hello Salazar.
Yummy.
Go back and watch it. It's really great. You'll love it.
Yeah, Frank. Take care.